Okay, so Kevin, at that event, that special event you were just talking through, you had a special guest there then that we also have now with us here today. It's Mr. Juneteenth, at least here in Galveston. Let's welcome in Mr. Douglas Matthews.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Real good. Thank you.
I tell you, yeah, Doug, we really appreciate you coming here and joining us here. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
I was city manager for the city of Galveston 11 years. I was assistant city manager 7 years before that. And I've been out at the University of Texas Medical Branch for the last 25 years as assistant vice president for government relations.
Well, you know, when you got here earlier today, Doug, I think you had mentioned 43 years you've been involved in the Galveston community, but also as part of
the 43 years that I've been assisting with the Juneteenth celebrations. One of the historic buildings on Broadway, the Ashton Villa, that's where we've had State Representative Al Edwards. He started the Juneteenth celebration. He made it the first state holiday for African Americans in 43 years ago.
Okay, you were very instrumental in a lot of firsts here in Galveston. You actually, you took me earlier to the very first Negro high school here in Texas.
Yes, Central High School was the first African-American high school in the state of Texas. I was the first black city manager in the state of Texas in 1985. And so Galveston has been known for quite a minute first. And then we also the home of the heavyweight champion,
Jack Johnson.
Jack
yeah,
Johnson.
There's a statue right next to the high school, isn't it?
Yes, we have a park dedicated to him that in collaboration with the city of Galveston.
Well, as city manager, did you have to, you know, some of those days have to pull off a Jack Johnson act, you know?
Well,
well, you can't tell me those stories.
And Scott and Doug, there's also another organization that we really need to give props to in honor of Juneteenth. That would be Hope for Justice, right? This is a nonprofit that we showcased during this year's Supply Chain and Procurement Awards.
That's right.
They were also featured during the christening.
You know, special organization, Hope for Justice is an international nonprofit working to bring an end to modern slavery and human trafficking. And unfortunately, Kevin, as we were talking with Tim and many others in the organization, slavery and trafficking is actually on the rise globally. On Juneteenth, they announced, Hope for Justice, a very special strategic relationship with the Juneteenth Museum.
Yes.
Now, even though Hope for Justice and Tim and the whole HFJ family is based in Manchester, UK, while Tim was here in Houston.
He was here at an event where he took time out to actually come to Galveston.
And we're talking about Tim Nelson, CEO of Hope for Justice, and y'all had a chance to chat, I think, on the steps of the courthouse,
On
right?
the steps here at the courthouse.
And I think we're going to hear from Tim now.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin L. Jackson, the host of Digital Transformers. I guess you're wondering why I'm not in my studio today. I'm outside, live at Galveston at the Juneteenth Museum. And guess what? I'm here with Tim Nelson of Hope for Justice. Hey, Tim.
So good to see you. So good to be here.
So it must have been a long swim, huh?
Definitely. If I had to swim that, you'd be waiting a long time. A long time.
So how do we get you here in Texas?
Well, I'm over doing a conference in Houston, and with us connecting and hearing about what the museum is doing, I said, if I'm in Houston, I'm making my way to Galveston. And it's so good that we could be able to meet together today.
No, absolutely. So, I mean, some people live under a rock, so they may not have heard of Hope for Justice. So what is Hope for Justice, and why are you here in the United States? That accent doesn't sound Texan.
No, it's not, and I'm not going to do anything to give anyone the impression I can do a Texan accent either. That would only be disingenuous to every single person who speaks with a Texan accent. But you could probably tell I come from Northern Ireland.
Okay.
I was born and brought up there and moved to England to university. And whilst I was in England, I got invited to sit on a business in the US, and I found myself in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Went out for dinner.
La La Land.
Yeah, something like that. Like so far away from what I grew up with. And a friend of mine invited me out for dinner. And whilst I was out for dinner, a person who was with him told me about the issues of human trafficking and modern day slavery. And I was amazed. I'd never heard anything about this at all. And he was on the phone to Condoleezza Rice, who was working for the Bush administration at the time. And he was talking about the downgrading of India on the human trafficking register. And he'd seen girls in cages being shipped all over India. And I was like, that seems like something back to the transatlantic slave trade. What are you talking about? And he told me about how many people were being held enslaved all over the world, and no one was talking about it. So for me, I came back to the UK, and there was a group of people who were gathering about looking to put on an event, and I joined my strength in, and we're a big group of about 10 of us that got together to form our first event. We got 5,884 people to launch Hope for Justice, and that was the start of the movement. And we've had 7 other organizations merge into us, and 3 in the US that have given us real scope and scale to make a bigger impact here in the US as well as internationally. But we now operate in 8 countries, and we look to prevent, rescue, restore, and reform issues of human trafficking and modern day slavery all over the world.
Well, okay, I gotta get my head around this. We're here in Galveston at the birthplace, the origin of the Juneteenth holiday. And that's where in America, General Granger came and read General Order 3, which freed the last enslaved people here in the United States at the end of the Civil War. So, wasn't that the end of slavery?
Well, in its basis, the transatlantic slave trade ended in 1886, 1883, but 1885 was pretty much where we celebrate what happened here at Juneteenth. But the sad reality of it is, though the legislation changed, the reality for so many individuals across the world to this day is that actually way, way, way more enslaved people are enslaved today than they were then. So even in the US today, whether it's in sexual exploitation, domestic servitude, labor trafficking, what we see in other countries to do with organ harvesting or forced marriage, the issues of human trafficking, the issues of modern day slavery still exist. And they exist and have amplified across the world. And it's almost like a crime that's hidden in plain sight. So although we do declare and we celebrate Juneteenth, we celebrate what has happened, we celebrate the lives that were tragically lost or impacted through this, we realize actually the mission to bring freedom still goes on. And that freedom needs to not just be a wave of freedom, it needs to be a tsunami of freedom that goes all over the world. So I take everything from Juneteenth to say that we need to take that spirit that was formed around Juneteenth, that was formed around the abolition of the slave trade, and we need to amplify it. And this place seems to be the best place for us to amplify it even louder in the United States and even louder across the world, that people who are being enslaved will not be tolerated. Those individuals who think it's right to buy men, women, and children, that will not be tolerated. We want to declare freedom to all people, all across the world, and we won't stop until we see an end to it.